Hello everybody, this is former WWE superstar Eugene, and today we're going to talk about Eugene's first and only world title match and how that ended in me getting a severe and legitimate concussion. And then I'm going to take you behind the scenes for a huge bombshell on a story that I've never told anyone, so stay tuned. I feel like one of the reasons that the creative team put the match together between myself and Chris Benoit is that they all knew Chris had come to Ohio Valley Wrestling and wrestled me at the Louisville Gardens in 2001. And he and I had a fantastic 20-minute match. Me being Mr. Wrestling Nick Dinsmore went toe-to-toe, hold for pound for pound with one of the greatest professional wrestlers in the world at that time. And the creative team wanted to recreate some of that chemistry, which I thought was awesome. As Chris and I were laying out the match together earlier in the night, he mentioned to me that he can't ever remember anything. So I was going to have to call the match to him. So imagine that. I'm still fairly new to the main event roster. And this guy's been on TV as long as I can almost remember, as long as I've been wrestling. And me being the new guy, I have to call the match to the World Heavyweight Champion. Now, I was over-prepared to be able to call a match to anybody, and I could do it, but to put the stuff together and then remember it and call it to him live on Monday Night Raw was kind of nerve-wracking, but it all came out just fine. But I feel like, looking back now, the fact that Chris couldn't remember something that we talked about an hour earlier in the ring was a definite sign that he probably had some kind of severe brain damage or brain injury. I think that probably led to what eventually happened. When I started as a Eugene character, I knew that Eugene was going to be a comedy character that I thought only had a certain ceiling and couldn't rise above, and I never thought he would have had a world title match, but there I was, live on Monday Night Raw, challenging for the World Heavyweight title. Eugene going toe-to-toe with the champion. I mean, Eugene had only been on Monday Night Raw for 14 weeks. What other WWE superstar has debuted, skyrocketed to the top, and had a World Heavyweight title match in the main event in his first 14 weeks of airing? Nobody. There were Eugene signs plastered all over the arena. There were more Eugene signs than Chris Benoit signs. The fans wanted Eugene to win the World Heavyweight title match. I remember there was one spot that I did want to do with Benoit. We discussed it before the match. Early in the match, he gives me the 3 rolling Germans. And when the time is right, I wanted to give him back the 3 rolling Germans. So I gave him 1. I gave him 2. And then he blocked the 3rd one. He threw a big wild elbow and I ducked and immediately grabbed him in the crippler crossface. I'd done so much tape study on Chris Benoit. I'd seen him do this before. He was the one giving the rolling Germans, and the guy threw the elbow, which he ducked and hit the guy in the crippler crossface. But I remembered that, and I pulled that little file out, and I put that right there, and it ended up awesome. I'm in the ring with the crippler crossface and the World Heavyweight Champion. He's got his hands up as if he's about to tap. Camera was right on us. And so was Johnny Photo. Johnny Photo, the still photo, got a shot of it. And that was one of the photos that was featured in the WWE magazine with Eugene. And it's an awesome one. And I have that framed and hanging on my wall today. When the time was right, Eugene hits the rock bottom on Benoit. I get the cover. 1, 2. Benoit puts his foot on the ropes and breaks the count. But Eugene doesn't hear that. He thinks he wins the world title. I roll out of the ring, I grab the world title, and I run around the ring holding the title in my hand like I thought I won. And I was so blown up. I was so winded. I was just begging for the Evolution music because that was the cue for me to get back in the ring. Early in the day, this was one thing that we specifically walked through, and Triple H wanted me to roll out of the ring, grab the title, and run around the ring. Holding the title so we could get a good camera shot of it. And the reason was the example he gave, and I remember this example, was when Rick Steiner beat Mike Rotundo for the WCW/NWA TV title. And he rolled out of the ring and runs around the ring pointing at him saying, I beat you, I beat you. And I remember watching that as a kid, and I loved Rick Steiner. And I felt like the Rick Steiner character then was nearly similar. I mean, not all the way Eugene, but he was a little bit more playful and a little bit more childlike than the other wrestlers at the time. And of course, Eugene took it much, much further. But that was definitely a inspiration for the Eugene character because he was a kind, simple guy that just went out there and kicked people's butts in the ring. Evolution music hits. Eugene rolls back in the ring. I'm holding the World Heavyweight title, presenting it to Triple H as if it's a gift, as if I'm so excited. And this was the point that all the fans had been waiting for. And Triple H finally did what everybody knew he was going to do. He turns on Eugene, punched me right in the face.
Oh, Triple H with a straight right right hand on Eugene.
And the beatdown was on. Evolution holds Eugene as Triple H just pounds on him and pounds on him and pounds on him. Finally get him the hammering punches, and I rolled to the floor. I got out my Blizzade and got myself a little red equals green, if you know what I mean. And when that happens, if you watch the film, they immediately switch the camera to Triple H, who's walking around doing his stuff so that no one watches me doing the Blizzade Jizzob. So there Eugene is with a trickle of blood coming down his face. Randy gives me the RKO. Batista gives me the big power bomb, and I'd taken the power bomb so many times from Batista when he was Leviathan in OVW. And you can see, I mean, I'm way up for him. Bam! Slammed hard to the mat. Eugene's laid out bloody in the middle of the ring, and Evolution decides they've done enough, so they exit the ring. Triple H steps out with one foot and then looks back, and he wasn't done. Steps back in the ring. Eugene's crawling on all fours, bleeding. You can see the blood dripping on the mat. And Triple H comes and punks me right in the face.
Doesn't understand. Oh, God almighty. What a sickening kick that was.
Now, I never saw Triple H do the punt to the face before or after. I've seen Randy Orton use it a couple of times years ago. I don't know if he still uses it. But when Triple H punted me in the face, he connected stiff and hard and punted me square in the face. On the film, you see me sprawled out on the bottom rope and my eyes are immediately glazed over. I had a cut right here where I got myself, and then I had a chute busted open right here where he kicked me in the face, and I had an immediate concussion. There's a wide gap, and then I'm just covered in blood. I mean, just bleeding everywhere. And it was kind of scary at that point because I remember everything started to get woozy. Blood went in my eyes, so I really couldn't see anything. And that's the way we went off Raw. The EMTs came down. They put me on the gurney, wheeled me back up the ramp to the back, or maybe down the side, I don't remember. William Regal had made his way down there, so he was coming back with me. And I don't remember a lot, but I do distinctly remember, I mean, fans in the front row were legitimately crying because Eugene was getting taken out on a stretcher. I mean, it was an emotional moment. It was, like I said, it was scary. I was woozy. I mean, even Regal was concerned, but they wheeled me to the back, and that's where I saw a local doctor that was there in conjunction with WWE that night, and he diagnosed me with concussion. He also gave me 2 sets of stitches, one up here and one right here. When we got to the back, I'm sure I spoke to Triple H. I don't really remember it, but I remember in the locker room, it was taking me no one was left in the locker room. It was completely empty. It was just William Regal waiting on me because we were riding together. And it took me almost forever to shower and get dressed. And he drops me off at the hotel. And I really remember that night. I mean, he had tears in his eyes, you know, and because he knew I'd taken a beating and I'd done it for the business. And I don't know if it was pride that he was proud of me, or maybe regret that WWE had actually, you know, done something that left me all woozy and messed up. Now he's having to drop me off at a hotel. But I remember being hungry. I went to eat. And the minute there was a diner nearby, I went to eat. The waitress sat down a plate of food, and immediately I had to vomit. So I ran outside and I vomited everywhere, which is a huge sign of having a concussion, a symptom of a concussion. I didn't eat the food that night. I ended up going back to the hotel, and they say you shouldn't go to sleep, but of course I did. And I get up the next morning, I go to the airport, and I didn't realize how bad I looked. I must have looked like Frankenstein because the woman at the airline counter, her eyes got big and she goes, "Oh my God, do you need to go to the hospital? Do you need an ambulance?" I mean, I had 2 sets of fresh stitches in my head, and apparently I still had blood caked inside my ear that I must have missed. And I was like, no, I just want to go home. Now, I'm not going to sit here and make the accusation that Triple H intentionally kicked me in the face, but did that segment, did the heat on Eugene really need the kick to the face? I mean, I was already bleeding. Triple H had laid waste to everybody. You know, their point was made, and the kick to the face was just kind of like an additional fuck you to Eugene. But, I mean, did we really need it? I've never really liked people throwing kicks to someone's head or face because I feel like you can get such a similar reaction by throwing a kick to the body or the stomach that's a lot less dangerous. Kick to the head are very dangerous, and especially if someone is inexperienced or not that good, you can hurt people. And I'm not saying Triple H is inexperienced or not good, but I got hurt that night. But if I eventually get diagnosed with CTE, I feel like the kick to the face by Triple H might be a contributing factor. This was the only time that I'd been diagnosed with a concussion. I'm sure I probably had others, but I don't know, nothing ever like this, nothing this bad. I mean, I was messed up for a couple of days. Now it's time to take you behind the scenes, to the good stuff, to the bombshell. Get ready for it. What if I told you that Eugene was actually supposed to win the world title that night? Now, I've never talked about this because I thought no one would ever believe me. I remember the stories about Nature Boy Buddy Landell talking about he was supposed to beat Ric Flair for the world heavyweight title and hold it for a short period, and Tully Blanchard was going to beat him, but Buddy didn't win it because he got messed up the night before TV and didn't make it to the TV studio, and he was supposed to win the title, and that was his story that I've heard him tell, although Buddy has passed away, rest in peace. But people kind of take it with a grain of salt, and I thought no one would ever believe me if I told the same story, but I'm going to tell it now. So a week prior, the creative team came to me and told me Eugene was supposed to win the world title against Chris Benoit. Triple H was going to do something and it backfire, and Eugene accidentally wins. Eugene was going to hold the world title for 1 week, and then I was going to wrestle Triple H in Washington, D.C. And then Triple H was going to beat Eugene or manipulate him out of the title somehow. And then Triple H was going to go on to SummerSlam to wrestle Benoit and Randy Orton in a triple threat match, thinking that Randy Orton would help him defeat Chris Benoit. And that's when Randy was going to win the world title against Triple H, which was called Triple H to then turn on Randy. Eugene was supposed to hold the title for just 1 little week there. But think about it. Think about the trajectory that Eugene was on. He got skyrocketed to the top, skyrocketed to all the legends, skyrocketed to the main event. Where else was there to go but for him to win the world title, even if it was for a week? And I know people might scoff at me and not believe it, but for 1 week, I was supposed to be world heavyweight champion. And I also know that the card is subject to change. So I kept that under my vest. I really didn't tell anybody because I sure as heck didn't want to go out and tell everybody, and then plans change, which is what happened. I think that Vince thought SummerSlam would be better if it was Triple H against Eugene and then Randy Orton against Benoit, which is what happened, as opposed to a triple threat match. So instead of Eugene getting beat up the next week in Washington, D.C. and left laying in blood, he was going to get beat up that night. And then that's as it progressed. But think about how much heat Triple H would have gotten if he would have manipulated or stolen the world heavyweight title from poor little Eugene. And then Eugene would have had an angle to try to go back and come after him. I don't know if I was going to get involved in the SummerSlam triple threat match and then somehow distract Triple H and Randy wins. I don't know what the exact finish there was going to be, but think about what could have been. Think about that 1 week of Eugene. I could have done media tours with the world heavyweight title. I could have had the pictures. I don't regret not winning it, but it definitely would have been another highlight, another feather in my cap. And this is the first time I've ever talked about it because, again, I thought no one would ever believe me. But Eugene was supposed to be world heavyweight champion for 1 week. And imagine what that week would have been like. If you haven't seen my previous episodes detailing the evolution of the Eugene character, please feel free to check them out here.